Coming up next, the Bookening reads The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Hey everybody, welcome to The Bookening. Yes, it's The Bookening. You knew that it was. You clicked on it, or maybe you've let Bookenings accumulate in your podcast feed, and this one finally came up and you didn't know what it was, and you don't recognize our theme music.
Yeah, I thought I was listening to Serial.
Yes, sir, we're doing the Chronicles of Narnia. They're right up there with the Chronicles of Riddick. What other Chronicles are there? Chronicles, you got Narnia, you got your Riddick.
First and Second Chronicles.
First and Second Chronicles. You've got that's my favorite. You've got Chronicle, that movie by Max Landis movie with the superhero. It's a superhero movie, but it's shot like a documentary. That's called Chronicle, isn't it? Are the new listeners gone? Okay, we can talk about Narnia. Voyage.
We only want the old listeners.
We only want old listeners.
If you haven't heard of us and haven't listened to us by now, we don't want you.
Right. If you weren't there for me and Brandon talking about poetry for 4 interminable episodes or whatever, then we do not want you to listen to us talk about Narnia.
Yeah, so stop this and go listen to something else.
Yeah. You don't get to start with Narnia. These episodes aren't an entry point for you. All right. Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Mm-hmm. The next in the series of Narnia books. First, you've got your lion, your witch, your wardrobe.
Yep.
Then you've got your Caspian. He's a prince. Then you got the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Any context specific to this book, Brandon?
Who, for me?
Yeah.
Some of the interesting parts of this, this is where you see a lot of the Norse mythology influences. So when Eustace turns into a dragon, that's ripping off pretty
famous dragon story?
Yeah, Fafnir.
Fafnir. I knew it started with an F.
Yeah, from Norse mythology.
Does he turn into a dragon?
He turns into a dragon.
Yeah.
And so
that's like one of the top dragon stories of all time, right?
Yeah.
That's like one of the bedrocks of dragon mythology.
He wouldn't be seeing himself as ripping it off.
He would just,
he was playing in their sandbox.
Only insofar as he's ripping off the gospel by writing these. I mean, he's just echoing these things.
Right.
Yeah, he's supposing that's what he's doing. And so in a book that I would argue has probably more, if not the most, definitely more of the grayness, the northness that he talks about in Surprised by Joy.
You would argue something like that.
Well, I mean, you end up seeing the north.
You know who else is gray is Brandon. He's wearing a gray shirt.
I am wearing a gray shirt, Nathan. Have you even introduced us?
No, I haven't actually.
But don't do it. Don't do it yet. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do the context first.
Yeah.
I'm getting married next week, folks. This is my last Bookening. Now, by the time you hear this, I'll be married, Lord willing.
Do whatever he wants.
But I'm getting married. This is the last one I'm recording before I get married, so that's fun, isn't it? To the incandescent Meredith. She'll become she'll still be the incandescent Meredith, but she'll be the incandescent Meredith Alberson instead of whatever else she was. Will her luminescence be dimmed, Brandon?
Well, critics, when this book first came out, they didn't think this quite lived up to the high levels set by previous Narnia adventures.
That's critics for you.
Those are critics for you, yeah. Though they did love Reepicheep, that talking mouse. But one of the, I guess I should. Can you guys guess which planet this is? Is this Venus? I think it might be Venus.
Probably, because you got the star lady that, what's his face, marries. And
I don't know, it's just my guess. Actually, based on not that hideous strength, Paralandra.
Yeah.
Is it Paralandra Venus?
Yeah. And this stuff
this feels pretty Paralandra.
It's got a lot of temptation and stuff in this book.
Lots of temptation and lots of
forbidden
vitality and fruit.
This is the sun.
Oh, well, of course it is, because they're journeying to the sun.
And the flowers get the
qualities are wisdom, liberality, generosity, freedom, riches, enlightenment, in opposition to greed. And almost everyone in this book is tempted by greed at some point.
True enough.
There you go.
And so there we have it.
The more we hear about this theory, the more credible it seems.
I like this theory. It's not a bad theory.
You know, it's sort of like astrology.
Yeah.
I mean, it is astrology for one. But for two, like, the more you read your horoscope, the more it sounds like they just get you, man.
Yeah. Well, and also,
my horoscope gets me.
The idea is that Lewis loved medieval cosmology so much.
What am I? Oh, no. I'm a
Gemini, probably.
I'm a Taurus.
Yeah, you're a Taurus. No, I'm a Scorpio. I actually have a cool zodiac sign. I never have a cool anything. The year of China that I was born, I'm like a stupid spider monkey or something.
I'm a rat.
Yeah.
I'm a rat.
Yeah, a rat is actually cool. I think I'm a bull or something. I don't know.
Rat's not cool.
Yeah, it is. Cool. Rats are shifty and clever and cool.
His hero is
when people see rats, they're always happy. You know.
Nathan loves Templeton. That's why he always dressed like
if
him.
Reepicheep were a rat, I'd be okay.
All right, I think the new listeners are actually gone now. So,
okay,
so we can introduce ourselves. I'm Nathan Alberson, your humble and obedient host. This is Jake Menzel. I'm doing it out of order. This is Jake Menzel. He's a pastor who's a master of reading. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Getting married.
I've killed 4 flies today.
I've seen you kill 2 of them. Brandon Chasteen.
I've killed no flies.
You've killed 0 flies. You're wearing a gray shirt.
I'm a pacifist. Okay.
All right, Brandon, you were just giving us some context.
We were talking about the planets.
Yes, the planets.
Sol, the sun.
Sun, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, he was big into medieval cosmology. Mm-hmm. And so...
Who isn't?
Who isn't, yeah. And so these things, even though he didn't believe, he wasn't like Yeats that actually believed in astrology.
Mm-hmm.
But still these things were...
Know? Sure he wasn't.
Well, at least he claimed he wasn't.
Right, but he wanted to.
Yeah, but at least these things were such a part of his imagination that while Michael Ward's book is really interesting in so far as it's fun that somebody pointed this out, it's not that surprising that a man who would also write about fauns and white witches and, the East, like Lewis did, would also then have the planets kind of in the background as part of his way he thought of his books.
Sure.
In fairness to Nathan and I, we're not accustomed to thinking of the sun as a planet.
Neither am I, to be honest.
Oh, good. But you're the one that made us guess. So.
Well, and your guess was Venus. So in fairness to all of us, you weren't actually guessing the sun.
Oh, and I made you guys guess because I had to have time to remember.
Right.
Because I had forgotten that this was the sun.
Well, they do bring sunberries. There's sunberries in this thing.
There are sunberries.
And they make Mr. Star, Ramadan, get younger.
Which the bird brought something that looked like a coal to put on his tongue. Mm-hmm. There's no biblical illusion going on there.
We'll get to it, Brandon. All right. Is there any more context?
Yeah, there is. There's one fun part of context here that we should talk about.
Fun part.
So when Lewis originally published this book in America, he made some changes. Mm-hmm. Some people don't know if it was because he thought the American audience wanted it to be different or if he actually thought these were good changes. So one of the minor changes is early in the book, he says that Eustace is far too stupid to make up anything for himself. Mm-hmm. In this American edition, he says, instead, he's quite incapable of making anything up himself, which I think is a decent change.
I like that change.
Because
Eustace isn't stupid, at least insofar as we get to know him later.
Yeah, I mean,
after his redemption.
He's just foolish. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And he becomes a key figure in other books, right?
Yeah, Eustace is really...
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
How many starring books does he have? He's the dude in Last Battle, right?
Yeah,
if I'm remembering correctly.
Silver Chair in Last Battle.
So Eustace gets 3. Besides Lucy and Edmund, he gets the most of anybody. I mean,
he's right up there.
Yeah.
He's right up there.
Peter and Susan are in.
That's true. They do show
Horse
up.
and His Boy, yeah.
And they do show up in the Last Battle too. But But Eustace to me feels like one of the main protagonists of this series. I'd put him right up there.
No, he definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other significant change that he made was after they leave the Dark Island. Mm-hmm. There's a long analogy he puts in there about what it feels like to wake up from a dream. Mm-hmm. That's in there, but the bigger change is the island doesn't disappear. Aslan doesn't destroy the island.
In my edition, the island does disappear, and they're like
the one that I just.
And so here's the edition we have.
Aslan got rid of it.
You want to read the part?
Yes, please.
So it's never to bring me back there, he said. This is Lord Roop talking. He pointed to stern. They all looked, but they saw only bright blue sea and bright blue sky. The dark island and the darkness had vanished forever. Why? Cried Lord Roop. You have destroyed it. I don't think it was us, said Lucy. And here's the change. He wrote, never to ask me, nor to let any other ask me what I have seen during my years on the Dark Island. An easy boon, my lord, answered Caspian, and added with a shudder, ask you, I should think not. I should give all my treasure not to hear it. And then after their sailing away, you have so all afternoon with great joy they sailed southeast. This is our edition that we read. Right. With a fair wind, but nobody noticed when the albatross had disappeared.
So that's the original published edition.
And so here's the change. So all afternoon with great joy they sailed southeast with a fair wind, and the hump of darkness grew smaller and smaller astern, but nobody noticed when the albatross had disappeared. And so the Dark Island doesn't disappear, but it's still a part of the Narnia map. Somewhere you could go if you accidentally found yourself in Narnia.
Yeah, that's much more creepy and cool, I think.
Yeah.
It's a positive change.
I was really disappointed, actually.
When authors come back and meddle with books like that, it's almost always bad, but that...
I think you're allowed to do it if you're Lewis or Tolkien, because they both did it to positive effect. Because wasn't the Riddles in the Dark was originally Gollum gives him the ring or something like that in the first edition of The Hobbit, right?
Was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think Tolkien had to like retcon the crap out of The Hobbit in order to make it actually match to the. I don't think he was thinking ahead.
And then he makes jokes about different
Bilbo told the story, always told the story. Yeah,
and
I think that's
Bilbo
because
having different editions of it.
Yes, I think that's because Tolkien, in fact, in the original, I think
isn't that clever?
Yeah, Tolkien was a clever guy, unlike certain other fantasy authors we could mention.
George R. Martin.
Terry Pratchett. Not
Anne Rice.
Anne Rice, yeah. Oh, man.
You know, she's being anthologized now with great American literature.
I did, because I've been to Barnes & Nobles in the last 5 or 6 years, and they always have, you've got your Mark Twain anthology, and you've got your Jane Austen, and then you'll have your Anne Rice, the Vampire Are those Chronicles? I think they might be. Oh, this is exciting.
Who cares?
The Vampire...
Diaries.
Chronic. Yep, that's another series of chronicles.
Oh my goodness, Nathan, put a stake through my heart.
Sure.
Okay.
What kind do you want? Like a ribeye?
T-bone.
T-bone. Okay.
What were we talking about? So in Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
I was looking through the poetry section.
Oh no.
When Barnes and Noble was still here, it's gone now. Maybe this is why.
Yes.
They had a published book of a Instagram poet, and they were just really bad. This is kind of,
Oh, was it Rupi Kaur?
Maybe.
The Indian woman?
I don't know.
There's this poet that got famous on Instagram called Rupi Kaur, and she writes this really, it drives me nuts. It's all this empowerment female stuff. You cannot shame my body kind of stuff. And it's just like she took some boilerplate feminist stuff and chopped it up a little bit so that the sentences were kind of looked like poetry, and now she's famous.
And if it looks like poetry, it must be poetry.
Yeah. Super positive change that C.S. Lewis made, right up there with Tolkien changing Riddles in the Dark.
Yeah,
it was one of the only things.
It really stuck out to me. I thought
it stuck out to me too. It was one of the only things that stuck out to me as being just like a bad decision.
That's lame. Aslan just like fixed it. Like Aslan,
that was a disappointing move.
Yeah, I took note of that.
You know those old maps where you'd have the wind blowing from the corners? I kind of imagined Aslan's face appearing on the map and just kind of blowing the darkness away.
All right, any more context we need to know about old Voyage of the...
No, we know it's Sol, the famous planet, the sun. Kind of think the sun might be a star and not a planet.
Right.
But, those medieval cosmologists or whatever they were, cosmonauts. Knew more than we did, I guess. I mean, I didn't even know that stars could retire.
They can.
Apparently.
And then they eat sunberries.
We're kinds of people that only know what stars are made of, not what they are.
Yeah.
I thought they were made of
giant balls of gas.
Balls of burning.
Maybe one of my first observations about this book
Jake,
is...
with you, everything's gas. What? Sorry.
That's Firefly. They cut up in
Did they preserve that line in the movie?
They didn't keep Pumbaa's line, but they kept Pumbaa's line. They didn't keep Timon's line.
Really?
Yeah. That's right.
But overall, Timon and Pumbaa's humor was one of the successful things about that movie, actually.
Yeah, agree.
There you go. Yes, Brandon.
What was I saying?
Something about Voyage of the DT.
Oh, yeah. The cutesy C.S. Lewis platitudes that come out sometimes in his theology books. They don't quite work so well in this.
This is context that we need to understand?
No.
You are throwing down an opinion
I'm throwing down a gauntlet, yeah. An opinion gauntlet. So you have the things like when he's writing Mere Christianity or...
So we're discussing this book now, Brandon.
I guess we are. Is that fine, Nathan?
Yeah, no.
Brandon's kind of taking over your job.
I guess
sorry, Nathan.
If you want to host, it's fine.
Yeah. Well,
I usually move along. I usually decide what time. When.
Well, Nathan, are we ready?
No.
You tell us.
It's fine, Brandon. It's fine. You obviously have something that's important to say.
No, it's not actually that important.
It's not like I'm getting married or.
Yeah. Okay, Nathan.
Have anything?
Do you want to talk about that?
No. Brandon, I want to hear your thought. Let's. All right. Let's talk about the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. You were about to throw down an opinion gauntlet. Go for it.
I liked this book in general. I liked the story. I thought it was fun. The voyage was fun. But in this story, I think the issues that Tolkien has with the Narnia world are on display more intensely than they have been.
The issues that Tolkien has being he hates allegory. He hates obvious
He doesn't like the allegory. I mean, his big issue was the mixing of the different fantasy worlds and no consistency. You'd have Father Brown appearing out of nowhere.
He stole from Chesterton. He took Father Brown and had him solve a case.
Remember Father Brown?
Yeah, Aslan was dead, and we need to figure out who done it.
Father Christmas, man, my brain is not working today. I'm tired.
And then Lucy and the Beavers saw there.
Sherlock Holmes appears too. Bucket.
Yeah. It's like Ready Player One.
Yeah. Just
Jack Nicholson from The Shining is in there somewhere.
Yeah. Father Christmas.
Father Christmas, yes.
But then he gives these...
Brendan made a mistake and we punished him for it.
Thank you.
That's what people like to listen to this podcast for.
Or they'll just complain about it on Apple.
He said Father Brown when he meant Father Christmas 1 star.
What an idiot.
He's stupid. It's things like this that bother me. Well, that bothers me. But so when they drink the water for the first time, Caspian says, yes, it is sweet. That's real water that I'm not sure that it isn't going to kill me. But it is the death I would have chosen if I'd known about it till now.
What's so bad about that?
Yeah, but Brandon, what is so bad about that?
Well, what's good about it, Jake? I'll turn it on you.
No, you're the one that decided it's bad.
Innocent until proven guilty.
It's bad. It's on you.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Well,
remember how our trial episodes work?
Yep.
Yeah. What strikes me as bad about this, and it's more a gut reaction than anything, is this has overtones of the sort of silly Neoplatonism that's all over the Great Divorce.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it has other undercurrents of that. A longing that's a wanting that's a having, all that stuff. And it's like, this water is so good that, what does he say? I would have died because of this water if I had known about it until now.
No. It's something new he's never experienced before. And he says, this is the kind of, it's really good, but it feels almost like it might kill me. But I guess that's the kind of death I would have chosen. He's speaking metaphorically, man.
He is speaking metaphorically, but with Lewis, you get the sense that what he tries to do with these metaphors
You've never said I'd kill for steak right now.
Well, he's not. That's the problem here. Is he's not speaking he's not speaking entirely metaphorically.
No.
So what happens in the Great Divorce is you have the raindrops that hurt and the grass that hurts, right? And because it is a sort of heaven's like a platonic ideal.
Right.
And so we're shades, and if you get into heaven, you have to be made real. And you see that happening here with the water suddenly makes them have eagle eye sight. To the point where they feel like they're getting more real as they approach the seawall, right?
Yep.
And so then you get tastes of it here with that, like, it's a death I would have chosen if I'd known about it till now. And Lewis just really likes to do this thing, like, the world is this one way, but if you flip it on its other side, it actually has this sweet, intense beauty to it that we just didn't know was there. Maybe I'm just a grump that bothers me. But there seems to be something a little bit. Well, I think we've talked about this.
Right.
What's wrong with it? So.
Well, okay. So my argument is you're stupid.
Okay.
And I disagree.
Mine is that you're a grump.
Yeah.
Actually.
And fat.
You need to lighten up.
Okay. Well, there we go.
It's just a book.
All right.
Yeah, it's just a book, man.
All right. Fine. No. I'm backing off, guys.
Brendan, you're neither stupid nor fat nor, you can be a little grumpy, but so can we all.
A little fat.
This podcast is 3 grumpy people. Actually, listen.
I'm not grumpy. What are you talking about? I'm never
Jake.
grumpy.
Jake's a paragon of, what's the opposite of grumpiness? Of joy. Yeah, joyful Jake. That's what we call him.
Hey, that hurts.
I just said we call you
I'm
joyful
wounded.
Jake.
And I would say...
You meant it, too.
No, I did. Listen, here's my argument.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think suicide. I think suicide has an interest in this Lewis stuff. I think Lewis has a creepy, as we've talked about with Till We Have Faces, all this stuff. Lewis has a creepy... And yes, the word that occurred to me actually was suicidal. Interest in the mysteries of the unknown.
Yeah.
He really likes that stuff. He really digs that stuff. I think this is actually the best version of it he's done.
I do too.
I think that he takes it way too far, and the metaphor is way too on the nose in a lot of things, so that it is inescapable what he's talking about. And you're like, okay, this theology of heaven that you are clearly presenting as a theology of heaven in the Great Divorce is just wicked or bad or wrong. I think Till We Have Faces, obviously the big offender in this category, where you just want to make it all about this transcendent longing. But I think that his essay, Weight of Glory, is basically pretty good with some caveats. I think there is a transcendent longing that we do have. I think we are intrigued by the mysteries of the unknown, and that is part of our desire to worship God and to contemplate this being and this reality and this eternity that's much bigger than us. And I think this book actually gets that pretty right. I think there's just enough detail that you get that sense without Lewis coming up and nudging you and saying, this is what heaven's like. No, it's just like, this is a general sense of what it's like to cross over the River Jordan and a way of kind of thinking about these transcendent realities. But it doesn't get so close to them that I feel like it's violating real mysteries.
We're talking about a world now, first of all, that's flat.
Mm-hmm.
And
you mean Narnia is flat?
Narnia is a country in this world.
You know Jake's a flat earther, right? He was actually talking about our Earth.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
we're talking about a world that's flat.
So much
C.S. Lewis lived in it. He wrote some books.
No, I guess here's what I'm trying to say. I think
he actually achieves real fantasy in this book in a way that feels like it touches on some of those themes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that it doesn't. I'm not going to argue that there's not something disturbing at the core of it. But he actually makes a credible fantasy world in this one. It doesn't just feel like allegory that's saying, this is what life's like. This is how you need to understand transcendence. This is how you need to understand God. No, it's just him using fantasy tropes to tell a fantasy story that actually feels kind of lived in and real in a way that none of the first two Narnia books.
Which is what The Great Divorce does wrong, is it tries to say,
but it's just a straight up,
this is hell, this is heaven.
Yeah, this is hell, this is heaven. This is not, that's not this.
Great Divorce is simply C.S. Lewis writing a theology of hell and heaven and thinly disguising it as a narrative.
Right.
This is not that. This is
a quest.
Yeah.
I mean, you jumped right to the very, very end of a great big quest book that is full of adventures in all sorts of weird and random places, and that has an end that it's getting brighter and transcendent, but then it comes to an end and it's over. And
well, this is what I'll say. It's easy to write about hell. It's easy to write about sin. It's easy to imagine what the greater realities of darkness are. The nightmare place, that's a good conceit.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful in the book, and nobody minds that. But it's always hard to imagine something better. Milton, Paradise Lost is a great poem because it's from Satan's point of view, but then he tried to do Paradise Regained, and
the weakest parts of that book are in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody loves Dante's Inferno. Nobody cares about Paradiso.
No, nobody does.
Except
weirdos.
Because it's much easier to imagine hell than it is to imagine heaven. And so C.S. Lewis dares to imagine some of these realities and to come up with fantasy conceits. And I'm not going to say he's 100% successful all the time. I'm not going to say there's not some disturbing Lewis stuff of the type that we've talked about somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But I just think this book actually is the most successful vessel for that kind of stuff, because it does, as Jake says, just feels like a lived-in fantasy story that works by itself and isn't constantly.
I was glad he did not take us over the wave with Reepicheep.
Yeah, to me it feels like he knows where to stop.
I think that's a big part of it, is that they just stop.
Yeah.
They stop at the wave. They can kind of see through the wave.
Yeah.
And they can kind of see through the sun, which is weird. But that's part of what I think is cool about it.
And they see those mountains and they get that, they hear that music and they feel the scent of heaven, basically. And it's like this longing it's a longing that they have.
It'll break your heart. Sad, no.
But to me, that rings true. We all have glimpses. Not all of us have transcendent visions. Most of us don't. But we all have moments where God makes himself more clear to us and we catch a little metaphorical scent of heaven. I mean, I don't think I'm being crazy.
Metaphorical scent of heaven.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be too literal about this.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think
it's a feeling.
Sometimes we get these feelings, and
I'm on board with that. I think that God gave us feeling, he gave us emotion, just like he gave us reason. We could try to parse the various ways they should interplay with one another all day, but we're not philosophers.
Right.
Maybe it's more than that these things seem a little heavy-handed at times in this book. Not enough to ruin it for me, but two big offenders. One, when we're in the magic room and Lucy does the uninvisibility spell, and Aslan is there.
Yep.
And then she asks, "Why are you here?" And he says, "Well, I wouldn't break my own laws, would I?" Or something like that, right? And then the other one would be when they come to the end and there's a lamb, and Aslan is talking to them as a lamb, right?
And when the albatross appears, I'll throw in a third one. The albatross appears and it's a cross.
I mean, so part of this just felt like he was, this was his way of getting his jab in at Tolkien, right? Without actually making it too explicit, because here's allegory. He's like, okay, you don't like the allegory, I'm going to give it to you.
Right.
It's not going to be hidden, but it's just going to be right out there in the open. Here's a cross. Jake, I think was this off mic when you pointed out what she remembered about the story?
Yeah, it would have been off mic. She remembers, when she's reading through the magic book that you can only turn right in.
Oh, Lucy remembers, yeah.
She finishes it, and then she tries to go back, and she can't. And then she tries to remember and finds that she can't. And then she's trying to piece it together, and all she can remember is there's a cup, a sword, a tree, and a hill.
Mm-hmm.
The imagery is pretty Gethsemane crucifixion-y if you take those.
So the argument we're dealing with now is that it's just kind of, as a literary devices, these things are kind of heavy-handed.
They're both heavy-handed, and also I think they do show as wonderful, really, as the image of the lilies, the silver sea is, as the seawall where you can see where the sun in front of the place that's behind it.
Mm-hmm.
As strange as that is, it seems that C.S. Lewis's softness when it comes to what he would allow himself to imagine. Like some of this seems like just stuff someone shouldn't even try to imagine. Like one of the worst additions to the Lord of the Rings movies is when they have Gandalf give his speech about what it's going to be like in the afterlife.
Yes.
That Tolkien was at least wise enough never to do in the Lord of the Rings.
Although that verbiage is from Tolkien, it's just the description of it's a paragraph from Tolkien about
Grey Havens.
The Grey Havens, yeah.
Which is similar, right?
I mean, they literally cut and paste a paragraph description and put it in.
But you don't see the journey to the Grey Havens, all that. So some of what Lewis would allow himself to imagine, what he would allow himself to mix with what he'd imagined, and some of the feelings that he would then borrow from his old love of paganism and stuff like that would then get mixed in with this. It makes me very wary of these sorts of portions of the book. Does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think he actually drew the line and didn't quite cross it. I think he tiptoed right up and waved his foot over it and jeered his nose at the line and spit on the line. He did everything but actually step over the line in this case. I think usually when we've had real problems with Lewis, it's because he's just blatantly walked over that line. And I think in this case he didn't. I think he had restraint. We don't see what Aslan's country is like. We don't cross over the wave with Riva Cheap. We just get a sense of longing. I mean, that's really all we get is just we're getting stronger, we're getting brighter.
Caspian wanting to go, selfishly wanting to go, is a nice little echo of Peter. Peter wanting to go up not long before the crucifixion.
Oh, okay. Peter, I was thinking Peter from...
The disciple Peter, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant Peter.
Yeah.
He wants to set up a tabernacle, right? He wants to...
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is like, no, we got things to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't find it across the line.
And the Bible deals in these things. I mean,
I think we've all had sort of mountaintop experiences of our own like that.
Yeah.
In worship or...
Yeah, where you're just, I don't know how to describe it in terms that don't sound either cheesy or mystical, but where you're just entering into it in a way that...
is really transcendent.
Is transcendent, yeah.
Overwhelming.
Well, and people have heard me tell this story if they keep up with Warhorn and stuff a million times, but a big turning point in my life was reading Psalm 18, where it talks about God in the darkness, coming out of the darkness, coming down, destroying David's enemies, and just realizing that everything that I looked to in an H.P. Lovecraft story, everything that I wanted to read about transcendent monsters and beings and elementals, all my love of fantasy and horror and stuff was actually a longing that was a having. It was actually me wanting to worship something that was bigger and unknown and something that was outside of myself. And so I know Lewis abuses that kind of thing, but I can't entirely condemn it either. And I certainly can't condemn it when it's in the scriptures, when the prophets, you read Ezekiel and it's just like a bunch of weird, crazy, outside of ourselves, transcendent stuff. You read Revelation, same thing. It's there, right? There must be some usefulness for contemplating these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And for contemplating them with emotion. And so should C.S. Lewis be messing with it? That's another question. I think there's a line there that you shouldn't cross. I think we've talked a lot about the places where he crossed it. And again, I just don't think he does in this one.
Yeah, I can buy that he doesn't cross the line. I feel that the line is there and that what becomes problems in other books is here, like The Scent of Lilies.
Right. Well, I was reminded of a lot of Christian books that I read as a kid growing up in a Christian home. We would order these fantasy books, and they all tried to do the same thing that Lewis did, and they were much more ham-fisted than he was, and they'd have these God characters. There's all kinds of ways that you can go wrong with this kind of thing, and I don't know that Lewis should have done it. But given the fact that he did do it, I think The Voyage of the Dawn Treader is the most successful place that he did it. I don't feel the ham-fistedness of it either. I don't like Aslan appearing as a cross that turns into an albatross. I don't like some of that stuff. I don't. I certainly don't like "You May Know Me There" by another name. I think that's borderline blasphemous and really cheesy. But
I think the ending is in general pretty bad, where they see the lamb.
Yeah, that's just lame.
Yeah.
I just, as an artistic endeavor, that's stupid. I don't like that. I agree with that. I actually thought Aslan was off in this one. Reading Aslan and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, coming back to him, I think I remembered Aslan as the way he is in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. That's kind of the Aslan that stuck with me over the years. But Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, it's like, oh, Aslan's kind of a dude. Like, he isn't always ethereal. Not every one of his sayings is a Yoda-like riddle. He's the king, right? And he shows up and he does king stuff and he disciplines people. Like, he seemed much more straightforward and much less wrapped in enigma. In this one, he kind of crosses the line into just being the enigmatic.
He was getting there with Prince Caspian.
He was. And I think Lewis generally does that stuff okay. But yeah, I thought Aslan was kind of annoying in this one.
Well, one of the ways I found it helpful to come to terms with this book was just since it was so allegorical, just kind of reading it as a series of small little allegories or parables. Like each island had its own little thing that happened.
Its own little lesson, yeah.
Its own little lesson. Somebody had to learn something at that island.
I actually like that. I actually think I hate Lion, the Witch of the Wardrobe allegory. It's the allegory, having small little lessons. Even this is the repentant scene with Eustace. He stands for a sinner. Like that doesn't bother me half as much as the whole book being written around.
Because then what it allows you to do is, which allow me to do, which is compartmentalize each one.
Yes.
And then say, okay, the ending stuff when they get to the lilies and all that is bad. That's Lewis kind of, and it's just, it's Lewis doing his bad theology and mixing that with his storytelling.
But it's episodic, so who cares if one episode doesn't work? It's just like you're on to the next one.
It's like his idolizing of the feeling of heaven over the reality of heaven is almost what it seems like. Does that make sense?
But he wasn't in the business of showing us here's maybe...
I know, but that's his whole career. Like, so is somebody going to get that out of this just by reading it without knowing who Lewis is? Maybe that's the real problem, is having read Surprised by Joy, having read The Great Divorce, having read all these other things, that in retrospect then kind of sours this. It might not be as sour without knowing those things.
I agree.
I don't think
quite
it
honest.
is.
Yeah, I don't.
And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying I will let my kids read this and I will read it to them.
And I don't think they'll be corrupted by it.
No, I'm not saying it's going to corrupt people. What I am saying is that I guess it's amazing how once you see his whole work, his whole life of work and thought, how you see how that even then got into a kid's story. Not in a way that's dangerous, but it's there still.
No, once you know what kind of a person Chris Evans is, you go back and it's harder to watch the old Captain America, the original Captain America performances, because you're like, even when this guy felt sincere, he probably wasn't. Yeah, so there's a little bit of that. I understand that.
And so the whole just last part just reminded me so much of The Great Divorce. Mm-hmm. And I know this is going to make a lot of people probably angry at me, but I think The Great Divorce is heresy.
Oh, I hate it. I think it's terrible. I'll go on record with that.
It's bad.
It's just bad. It has some great little moments. The grass cutting into their specter-like feet, I actually really like that.
But even that's just Neoplatonism.
Yeah, it is. But it's cool.
It's cool, yeah, but still.
I like it as a poetic metaphor, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Anyways, we were talking about the allegory, the small parables.
Right.
So.
Well, whatever you want to say about the ending, I like most of the journey, actually. And I should give my baggage. I didn't like this book growing up. I will give this to Brendan's point. I think part of the reason I didn't like it was because it did just feel eerie and weird. And I found it creepy. And there were a couple things that I found creepy. The guy jumping into the lake, like this poor guy I actually, with Lucy, thought that was just too horrible to contemplate. Some dude strips off his clothes and dives in and turns to gold. I remember that really bothering me for whatever reason. I guess I was a sensitive kid.
That was a well done section.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite islands.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty creepy. And then I actually, once they get to what's Ramadan's real name? Ramandu. I found that whole section to be weird as a kid. I really didn't get it. Suddenly Caspian's in love with this girl, which is something I couldn't relate to. And there's the star guy. It felt kind of mystical and out there. And like most of the Narnia books that I was used to ended with like a battle or a villain or, just something that boys like. This one going all transcendent at the end, I really didn't like as a kid. I liked it better. It just was more enjoyable to me, as a work of fiction now.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the islands were successful, the Dragon Island especially, with Eustace was good.
It's a nice bit of allegory.
He doesn't give Eustace the complete change that like an Edmund got, but he's still got a change.
I had forgotten about that little paragraph where it says he doesn't change completely. I really like that.
And he makes a point of that. And like he still was back to his old annoying self, like when he was playing chess with Reepicheep or something in the next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stresses that the change is slow for Eustace, but it's begun.
Which is nice.
The cure had started, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And so...
when Lewis sticks to human psychology, nobody does it better as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and actually, as far as the psychology of repentance, that whole scene with Eustace is pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
So he tries to take his own scales off, but he can't.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way is for Aslan to do it, and it almost feels like it pierces him to the heart, and then actually has pain to it. And then it's not an immediate change, but the cure has started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody who's been saved knows that that's what it feels like, especially anyone who's grown up with the gospel, because it does feel like that. Like when you try to save yourself, it's like just trying to take your own scales off, but it's not happening. It's not working.
Well, even down to the
and
fact
something
that
happens where the claw enters, and it actually does, and it hurts.
Mm-hmm. Even down to the fact that Eustace thinks he does a pretty good job the first time, and then it...
Yeah, which if that scene made me pause. I was like, well, either Lewis was good at listening to people or Lewis knew something. Yeah.
Because he does that kind of stuff well in too many places for it just to be...
Yeah.
He got lucky or something.
This sort of repentance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he always does those scenes well. He does repentance and he does temptation well.
Yes, he does. Repentance and hideous strength is one of the stronger parts of that.
Mm-hmm. Mark's repentance.
Yeah.
I didn't get what he was going for with the Gold Island when Aslan appeared and made them all forget it or something like that. What was the allegory there? Or what was the point of that?
I guess that the draw of greed is so strong that they needed to be protected from it by being confused.
I guess.
I don't know.
How'd you guys like those duffel puds? They're pretty funny, I thought.
They were. Well...
Are you taking this book too seriously, Jake? What are you thinking over there? You've been kind of quiet.
Maybe taking it too seriously.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think we should be approaching this book? People want to hear from Jake Menzel.
I
feel like what you might want to say is, get off your high horse, guys. It was just a fun book. Where they had some adventures.
All right. This conversation has really been annoying to me. Completely obnoxious from the get-go. Starting at the very end of the book and trying to deconstruct a view of heaven from what is a simple quest book that has a bunch of little short episodic adventures in it. Each of them with a little fun lesson that you may like or you may not like. But a lot of it being about risk and courage and guts and bravery and repentance, and it's a lot of good stuff all through. I just think it's a fun, enjoyable kids book. One of the best ones that there is.
One of the best kids books that there is?
Whoa, shots fired.
Yeah.
Wow.
This one in particular.
I mean, well, first of all, I think the Chronicles of Narnia are among the best children's literature that exists.
Agreed, and worth saying.
And I think that this is one of the more fun books in all of the series. It's just a boys' adventure book.
A boys' adventure book that ends with a bunch of weird transcendent stuff that I didn't like as a boy.
I loved it.
You liked it.
It was my favorite book as a kid.
I like the mer people.
Book, I thought it was my favorite book as
including
a kid.
The ending.
Yeah, including the ending.
Okay.
I thought the ending was really cool.
Okay.
Unexpected.
So there's no bad guy.
And maybe I didn't think there needed to be. There was a bad guy around every corner. The bad guy was yourself. The bad guy was the instinct to turn away from adventure, to turn away from risk, to turn away from doing something. And then there was Reepicheep, always saying, no, let's do the hard thing. No, let's do the fun thing. No, let's do the scary thing. No.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of living if you're going to be a coward?
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, didn't we sign up for an adventure here? Like,
don't you think they should have sailed around Nightmare Alley or whatever? Stupid.
I'm not gone straight through it.
I don't know if I was there, if I was with Reepicheep on that one. I'm glad they
through the darkness.
Let's drive our car over the rickety bridge.
Lucy agreed with Reepicheep.
They wouldn't have found Lord Roop.
Yeah, I guess it all worked out, but
it was,
that felt a little bit like the Sound of Sanity episode, The Coward's Climb, to me. Like, let's just do something stupid because that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, Reepicheep's point is that they decided to go on this quest. They had a particular goal, and they couldn't turn away from something just because it was frightening.
I get that, but their goal wasn't to travel through nightmare.
But as far as they knew, one of the lords was in
I
there.
suppose that's true.
It turns out he was.
I suppose it turns out he was. Reepicheep was right.
And the fact is, they had every evidence that the hand of Providence was behind them along the way. And
down to the hand of Providence literally appearing to them and rearranging things and doing things. I mean, Aslan's appeared in the sky, so
as an albatross.
That wasn't before the...
Well, and nobody remembered that anyway, so...
Nobody tried to kill it.
Yeah.
The rhyme of the ancient.
The albatross, yes.
The albatross was after they were in the dark, guys.
They had like the searchlight, and then the albatross came down.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that they found where the sky ended.
Yeah. I think all that stuff is super cool.
It reminded me of the Truman Show.
I think that let's have a sort of ancient a world that actually is in reality
a medieval map.
Mm-hmm. Like, I thought that was super cool as a kid. And I still think that's super cool. I think let's have a world where the serpent's gonna randomly show up, and to me as a kid, like, all of these little scenes were way bigger than they actually are in this book.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But everything, everything was from Eustace turning into a dragon to the pirates that they snooker the whole island that they take back by pretending that they've got a fleet with them. Every little adventure like that was just interesting. That whole idea of sailing off into a new world, what would it have been like? What would you have thought if you were Columbus, if you were headed out into who knows what might you find?
Well, and what if you found stuff that wasn't boring and stupid? Like, know, they were the romance of all those old stories about Columbus and Ponce de Leon and stuff is that they were searching for the Fountain of Youth and things like this.
Yeah.
But all
El Dorado,
they ended up finding stuff that is prosaic to our understanding now. What's cool about this is like, what if you actually had the great adventure that every boy dreams of?
What if you found the body of water that had the Midas touch? What if you found what if you actually ran into the great sea serpent? What if,
There's an untamed quality to it that's really cool. Like, you don't know what could happen. Anything could happen.
What if you found an island where there were mysterious and voices and invisible and well-kept lawns, and it looked like, what if you found I like the idea of not knowing having to make the decision of, man, we don't know that we don't really have enough food to make it back. I guess we're going to press on into the void, not knowing what we might find, or if we're going to starve out here and die. Like, all that stuff, like, that was enough tension for me. I didn't need a bad guy. But the idea of just sailing off into the unknown to find what may come, knowing that you are also in the hands of a benevolent Providence. Lion King, a benevolent Lion King in this case. Yeah.
Mufasa.
Yeah. That's cool. Like, I don't know that I have the stomach or the guts to be that kind of risky unless I know that I'm in the hands of a benevolent God. But I loved that before, and I loved it. I love it now. I think it's still cool. I think it had the same kind of appeal for me that Huck Finn had for me, of getting on the raft and sailing down the river and not knowing where you're going to land or who you're going to run across and where you're going to be, but you're going to go away from where you are. They had a quest that they were on. I don't know. I think it's cool.
Well, and to be fair, I'm the only one who didn't read these when I was a little boy.
True enough.
I'm not really.
Yeah, it's not. This is not said to disparage what you just said, Jake, but it is impossible to escape from the imprint of. It just makes a difference. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't going to always like this book no matter what, because it was special to me when I was 9 or whatever. But I think a lot of people listening to us come to these books that way.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think they do.
And I think that when you take it by itself, or even in the whole context of the whole of the Chronicles of Narnia, it's nothing like what The Great Divorce is, or what Till We Have Faces is in and of themselves. And so...
No, I agree with that. And so I bring that to this book, and it's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, I will say Lewis is really interested in what's beyond the veil, and that's all over this book. I don't think it's not. I mean,
I think it is too. But I also think that, like you were saying earlier, he drew the line and he never tried to tear the veil down.
Right.
What he did do is give you the idea that the closer you get, the more you want it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true. I think the closer you get to heaven, the more you want it. The closer you get to Jesus, the more that you want to be with him.
Well, and he even gave us a rebuke for being too interested. I mean, we have Caspian saying,
well, that's the thing,
I have to sail on, I have to see
Caspian wants to go, is prepared to leave everybody behind, and he gets the biggest straight up rebuke of everyone. And the rebuke doesn't even, like, most of the time the rebukes come from Aslan himself, and it's sort of private. And he does get a private rebuke from Aslan after the whole crew takes him to the woodshed.
Mm-hmm.
Threatens to mutiny, yeah.
Well, they say it's not mutiny.
They're going to just tie him up because...
Right. It's our duty to you as our king and to our people to
That's
tie
exactly
you
what
up.
we do for Ulysses if the sirens were...
And Reepicheep is like, he's the guy who's ready to lead the charge. Caspian, said Edmund suddenly and sternly, you can't do this. Most certainly, said Reepicheep. His Majesty cannot. No, indeed, said Drinian. Can't, said Caspian sharply, looking for a moment, not unlike his uncle Miraz. And then Reinelf says, if one of us did the same thing, it'd be called deserting. Edmund says, you can't again, said Caspian. What do you mean? If it please your Majesty, we mean shall not, said Reepicheep, with a very low bow. You are the king of Narnia. You break faith with all your subjects, and especially with Trumpkin if you do not return. You shall not please yourself with adventures as if you were a private person. And if your Majesty will not hear reason, it will be the truest loyalty of every man on board to follow me in disarming and binding you till you come to your senses.
Which is pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You shall not please yourself with adventures as if you were a private person is pretty deep wisdom about the nature of authority and responsibility.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, for all the cheesy or even wisdom that I don't agree with, there is a lot of wisdom here that is, like you said, deep wisdom. So, and just because occasionally get flashes of what's bad doesn't mean you have to write the whole thing off. So
I understand Brandon's queasiness in the larger context, and I understand it particularly because I liked this book, and I think it appealed to some things in me that are the same thing that H.P. Lovecraft does, that any sort of fiction, horror fiction, supernatural fiction that promises to tell you what lies beyond the veil, even if it's terrifying, which I've always been attracted to. And this time, and I remember as a kid finding this book kind of creepy, and I remember now, or I remember today reading it and finding that interest. And I'm not saying it was prurient. I'm not saying the book's not good, but I want to sort of throw a bone to both of you guys. I want to say Jake's right. It's just a fun book. It doesn't cross the line. It's a good book. People can read this. No kid is going to be corrupted by this book. On the other hand, there is some of Lewis's creepy obsessions with what's beyond the veil in here, and it's what powers the book towards the end.
And it was no doubt a big part of what also appealed to me as a kid. I loved that sort of thing.
Yes.
I loved Greek mythology. I loved all of it.
Right.
I wanted to know. I wanted to see beyond the veil.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the appeal, even at the end. So I'll give you guys that.
But I think that appeal exists in life. I think it is it is a small component of real worship. And I think we can make fun of a longing that's a having, all that kind of stuff that we talk about. It's bad when it becomes an end in and of itself. But Lewis is not wrong.
And man, it corrupts so many people.
And it does.
That stuff really does. And, I made fun of that stupid Shane and Shane song.
Right.
Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you. Like, that's retarded. There's nothing biblical about that. It's just, what?
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to pile on, but finish your point.
No, yeah. It deserves to be piled on. That kind of, the idea that worship is at its highest point of expression when you're not exulting in the grace and mercy of God with gratitude, not exulting in his perfections, but expressing your longing and desire to do those things. That's pretty perverse, actually.
Yeah, right.
You see, as the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul thirsts, pants.
So my soul
longs after after you.
Yeah.
But it's not, oh, if only my soul thirsted. I want my soul to thirst more after the waters and to long more after you. No, it's like David's in a place of feeling distant from God.
Right.
And he wants that unity with God.
Right.
And that's what he's expressing there. It's not this sort of like, what's really great is when you feel that distance and have that longing.
Exactly. What's great is not being hungry. What's great is being full.
Right. And that's still not to say that even in being full, there's an acknowledgement that
there's a deeper hunger.
There's a deeper hunger. There's a distance between us and God that will not be closed until the end of the age, until we're united with Christ.
Right.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, and also it's important to remember that, like we read at Surprised by Joy, Lewis acknowledges himself that this longing and stuff is not as important for his walk as a Christian after he became a Christian.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see this, and fair enough. I started the argument by weighing things. It was like a duffel pod.
Mm-hmm.
I weighed everything really heavily towards one end of the ship.
Duffel pod, I think.
Duffel pod. Thank you.
But they become monopods.
Yeah, by monopods. By starting.
They mix up their name, the Duffers and monopods, and they become duffel pods.
Yeah, you're right.
It was a bit unfair for me to immediately start by hijacking Nathan's.
Yeah, Brennan, you've just been.
Yeah, I ruined everything.
So hot out under the gun.
I think I proved that I just shouldn't try to take over the hosting responsibilities.
There's a reason that we have things the way we go.
See, we could have had a nice conversation about how wonderful the journey was, the voyage, and then I could have said, "Yeah, but what about that ending?" Once we came to the ending,
yeah,
right.
And then we could have had some acknowledgement that there's some weirdness about the ending.
Yeah, instead I had to sour everything.
Bad.
Yeah,
he soured it for me pretty much.
I basically gave everybody my experience of the book. But maybe this means that I should come to Lewis with more of an open mind and not have everything so soured immediately.
Nah.
Maybe that's what I've learned.
Look, Lewis did it. I blame Lewis for writing Till We Have Faces and The Great Divorce and all kinds
for basically just being a pagan.
All kinds of crazy Gnostic stuff.
Yeah. I do think in the end, part of it may just like having... When I was young and I tried to write poems or stories, one of the things I would do is like as a crutch, I would put in cheesy references to either literature or biblical allusions that I thought were clever because I thought it...
References to Midsummer Night's Dream as he throws in
like I thought that might elevate something for me. And so then you have like the sunberries that are like coals that are going on the tongue. That's a reference to Isaiah, right? And then you have at the end where literally when he's opening up the world so that they can go back, it's like he was tearing a curtain.
Well,
right? And you're just
rending
like,
the sky, which is imagery from Isaiah.
Yeah, and so you're just like, come on.
Well, I think people should always remember with Brandon too is that Brandon loves Yeats and has loved Yeats and had to kind of repent of loving Yeats. And Yeats is nothing if not a mystic in some of these ways, these exact same ways. And
much worse than this.
Brandon's sensitivities, Brandon's going to be on high alert for this kind of stuff, and rightfully so, I think.
Now, does that mean that if we had started like a normal conversation would have at the beginning, we would not have found some wonderful things and had a different conversation? Yes, because I can't stress enough that this is a fun book. And some of the journeys, like the Island of Darkness is fun. The dragon scene really is great.
Dragon scene's just great allegory. I'm going to give it.
I just think it's super great allegory.
I hate allegory, and that's great allegory.
I think it's the
best
kind of allegory
that you want your son to read, so that you can use it with him, so that you can say to him,
"Oh, that's what I thought of that period of life."
Well, yeah, and Peter read this book. I went to a funeral, drove 7 hours each way to and from a funeral, and Peter read the book in the car on the way there and back.
Yeah,
we had a great talk about the book as he was reading it, and also when it was done. But one of the best things, like I really want, you want your kid to have Edmund, so you can talk to him about Edmund and how he's like Edmund and how he needs to not be like Edmund. You want your kid to have Eustace because Eustace is a nasty, know-it-all, complaining, lazy kid, and he becomes on the outside what he was on the inside. And the only one who can free him is the godlike figure, is God. And that's just a great metaphor. It's a great tool. It's a great thing to have. It's a great handle to have. As a dad, it's a great handle to have. As a kid who wants to be godly, it's a great handle to have.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these books have a handle or two that's like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's the Bell in The Magician's Nephew. It's the Turkish Delight in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's the dragon in The Dawn Treader. I don't know what, if anything, is in Caspian quite like that, but
I'm not sure Caspian really had one.
But it's the stripes on the back of what's her Erebus.
Erebus, yeah.
Erebus and her and Bree,
Mm-hmm.
both of them in The Horse and His Boy.
Yeah.
Those are just really great tools, handles, metaphors that stick with you or have the power rather to stick with you.
Absolutely.
If you have the will.
Yeah, and that just comes from Lewis's, one of his strengths is that sort of image building.
Mm-hmm.
So like beyond, simpler than that, like those are great for teaching, right?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the lamppost and the fawn, those were in his mind, but they stick in your imagination too. Here, pretty much every one of these worlds, just looking through the chapter titles, the Dawn Treader as a ship stands out.
Right.
Absolutely.
The picture, that's one of the coolest entrances into Narnia.
The coolest, I'll say.
Yeah.
I like that he says, Lewis always hated movies, so I like that he says, it was not like the cinema.
Yeah.
Just so you know, it's not like this contrivance that is ruining civilization as we know it.
My kids watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory the other day. When you get to the Mike TV scene at the end.
All that stuffy stuff about how bad TV is.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Anyways.
There's a really funny, people can look it up on, you can Google it. Lewis had right in one of his letters, he talks about seeing, I think it's a letter, he talks about seeing Snow White, Walt Disney's Snow White, and he just thought it was so stupid. He thought the dignity of the dwarves was totally ruined, like they're made into bumbling idiots. Mr. Disney just has to have his slapstick, and Lewis is just like this grumpy old man in his chair shaking his cane at Walt Disney. I think he likes The Witch, which he would. I think he thought Disney did The Witch well, which I think I could see why Lewis would think that, because Disney did do The Witch well. But he does not like the dwarves. He was insulted by the lack of dignity that Disney gave to those dwarves. Anyway, side point, but kind of makes you love Lewis.
But like here, even at the small points, like when they go and they reconquer the city Narrowhead, even that's great.
I really love it.
Yeah.
I love that whole thing. I love the tactics of it. I always loved the tactics
as
of
a kid. You could really enter into the, they're going to pull this off. This is cool. Like, they've got nothing but show.
It's on a knife's edge.
Yeah.
But they're really smart, and they've got the advantage of being virtuous versus the advantage of going up against unrighteous men who are lazy cowards at the end of the day. And so they can just pull it off just by being ballsy enough
and walking in
just
like
by
they own the place.
Acting, on a pure bluff, acting like they own the place, keeping things moving fast, throwing some wine to the guard to butter him up.
That's a nice touch.
Like, that was a super nice touch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We're disciplining. Oh, and I really love that he disciplines them and then forgives them. Like, that was super smart.
Disciplines which ones?
The soldiers.
Yes.
So he disciplines the soldiers. He's like, y'all are slovenly. I don't know what is going on here.
If I wasn't on a diplomatic mission.
If I wasn't on it, y'all would be
reason.
flogged. But you know what? This is a happy time. This is the first time I've been here. I intend to be happy. And so I forgive you all. And here's some wine for you.
I know you want to drink my health.
Yeah, I know you want to drink my health. Never let me see you in such disarray ever again. And since he's got that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, it's the discipline, it's the gravity, and the generosity. They've missed out on all of it under this guy. And boom, boom, boom. Man, so smart. Then they got the guy on his heels, and then boom, then you're relieved of your duties. Lord Byrne, you're now in charge. It just happens so quick. Everything about that, I remember loving it as a kid. Thinking it was super suave. So of course I still love it.
Yeah, I think it still holds up. It does not feel, Nathan always likes to complain about we're setting up some people just to knock them down. It doesn't feel like that. It feels pretty organic. The bad guy feels realistically bad. He's not like annoyingly bad. Just is not the bully that comes up in a Stephen King story just to knife you or beat you up so we can feel good about him getting his comeuppance later, or Stranger Things, the bullies in that. It's just realistic bullies and realistic comeuppance.
Yeah, and the other thing, lots of nice little touches all around. And another one of the nice touches is when I think Lord Byrne or whoever, maybe Caspian's the one who says it, but I think Lord Byrne says, this is probably going to end up in a war. Like you probably just started a war with Calormen here. Mm-hmm. We need to all know that. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't just stop the slave trade and not expect there to be
huge repercussions.
Mm-hmm. So just so we all know, this probably means war. I'm happy to be your guy here as the Lord Regent of this little island, but we're going to be on the forefront. We're going to be the tip of the spear of this war. War is going to come here. Be ready.
Right.
To now fight a war with Calormen and to support us.
Right.
When you get done with your quest, you better send an armada. Like, that's kind of the subtext. I just think, and I don't know if this happens in the Silver Chair, but I expect it does. I can't quite remember. I know that Trumpkin is there and he's really old, and that Rillian is Caspian's son, right? Or something like that.
I believe he is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's like Caspian and Ramondu's daughter's son, and he's enchanted by a witch or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't surprise me if in some kind of aside or some kind of telling, Lewis gives us the history or a brief history of the epic war with Calormen that ensued because of...
Or we might hear of it in The Horse and His Boy.
No,
that would have been thousands of years before, Bryn. 5,000 years before.
Can't keep my chronology straight.
No, you don't like Lewis. Why would you?
Yeah.
I'm just going to make you into the bad guy on this one.
Thanks, Nathan.
It might come back in the last battle or something like that.
Well, I will say this is the first book where I think in a previous episode I described Narnia as being like a Western town, like in Blazing Saddles, where they suddenly pull back and we see that it's all just facades. This is the first time in all these books where this world feels lived in and real and big, and like there's things happening off screen. It's like, it doesn't feel like, this another little island was contrived so we could have an adventure.
No, you're just exploring.
Narnia feels big. It feels like there's a political system. It feels like there's repercussions, is how you like to say it. I say repercussions.
Repercussions.
I said repercussions, and then you said repercussions.
I say repercussions.
Repercussions.
Yeah. Repercussions.
I really think that's a lot. In The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Narnia feels cozy. To me, in Caspian, it starts to feel a little claustrophobic. In The Dawn Treader, it's a whole wide world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Back to Silver Chair, it gets super claustrophobic. The vibe I remember is it's super claustrophobic. I just hate that. Mm-hmm. I like big wide worlds. I don't like claustrophobic little worlds.
Well, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe feels extremely small reading it as an adult. It's like they travel 5 feet from point A to point B in this world.
Like literally they do.
Yeah, in this world
literally the witch's castle is 15 minutes from Beaver's Dam, which is a day's march to the Stone Table, which is where it all happens within a day's journey on foot.
It actually feels like a story that children would come up with. I wonder if he wasn't actually playing with the conceit more of like, it's their world. It's
because
a children's
as a kid,
world.
It doesn't feel that small.
Right.
It feels pretty big.
But it's like, it has that feeling of like, in Imagination Land, we have the 3 things that are important to the story that we
really
as kids are
It's like the 100-acre wood.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor for what it is. But in here, it just feels like there's all kinds of stuff. If Caspian and his friends had traveled to a different island, they would have found a different adventure, because that's just what this part of the world is like.
The winds have been blowing a different direction.
And we hear about politics with the Calormenes. Is that how you say them? And
I think so.
Stuff like that.
Calormenes?
Telmarines.
The Calormenes.
Telmarines is Caspian's race.
And he's able to bring in some...
Calormen is the land that they're doing their slave trade with.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
I think it would be Calormene.
Who is the horse or the boy? The boy is a Calormene.
That's that world. It's like
are they
the Aladdin
Who
world.
are the Tash worshippers?
Are they Calormene?
Maybe.
I think the Tash worshippers are
Calormene. And they're essentially Arabs.
Right. Yeah. The others are the Caspians race, the Teshmarines or whatever they are.
What?
Teshmarines or whoever the other ones are.
Talmarines.
That's Caspian's race.
And they're pirates.
Yeah.
So is the slaver dude, like Pug or whatever his name is he a Talmarine?
Pug.
I guess.
Isn't his name Pug?
Yeah, his name is Pug.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Shakespearean.
Yeah. That whole section is very Shakespearean.
It is very Shakespearean. And Lewis is able to bring in some of his tongue-in-cheek jibes at like bureaucracy with the governor or whatever he is.
Yep.
saying what are the charts.
You'll have to make an appointment. Yeah, you can tell Lewis is the kind of guy that did not suffer the BMV.
Well, you could just see every department chair that he hated.
Oh yeah. He's got settling some scores in that section for sure.
He had some
Is
wisdom
that how
there.
you speak to your king?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a great section, and I'd forgotten all about it.
But yeah, the book's full of that sort of stuff.
What are you guys' other favorite islands? I'd forgotten all about Nightmare Alley or whatever it's called.
If you could live on any of these islands.
If you could live on an island, well, not Nightmare Alley.
I'd live on Nightmare Alley. My nightmare's on.
Well, what a horrific conceit. I don't know if that comes from mythology or what, but the idea of all your worst dreams coming true and of Lewis not being able to, that's a good horror story kind of.
Yeah. What was appealing is this is where all your dreams come true.
It's the island.
And he's like, you idiots.
It's not daydreams.
It's not your daydreams. Like, it's your actual dreams.
Well, I'm sure.
And then everybody has this moment where it's like, whoosh, every man runs to the oars. Everybody's like, let's get the...
Yeah. It's Wile E. Coyote blinking as the boulders rolling on him.
Very cartoonish.
Boink, boink, and then they're whoosh.
It's the most Looney Tunes moment of the whole thing, in my opinion, is like that moment where you've got this like breath and then everybody rushes. And
they all leave them-shaped clouds where they were.
Exactly. And Reepicheep's like the only one. He's like standing there. He's like Bugs Bunny, and everybody's running around, and he's like, this is mutiny. And Caspian's like, row, row, row. Row for your lives.
Well, and what's powerful, great horror stuff always plays on your own fears, right? Who doesn't read that section and think of a nightmare? Immediately think of if I went to a world where that came true, then... Yeah. That'd be the worst thing ever.
Well, and he gives you enough time to contemplate it because he bounces from spot to spot to spot. Like Lucy is thinking about a certain thing. He never tells you anything about what these are.
Which would ruin the effect.
Yeah. But he gives you enough time to show you, like, he gives you hints. Like, the one guy says, they're crawling up the side. Right. Another guy says,
here's the gong.
There's the gong. I knew it. Just a little things that I've had dreams that are terrifying.
Yeah, I flash back. Mine was the Grim. I had a dream about the Grim Reaper when I was 6 or 7, and he was after me, and I was moving through molasses. I couldn't run, and he was gonna. And it sounds silly to recount it, but it's terrifying, right?
The church I grew up in was a large Baptist church with lots of hallways, and then it had a baptismal that you had to walk up these stairs on either side. So I'd always have this dream that I was in the church, the lights were out, and something like a shadow was pursuing me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would always end up in that baptismal.
I had dreams about the quarters of the Baptist church.
Yeah.
And I had dreams about, I don't even want to talk about any of it.
So not the nightmare. You wouldn't live there.
No, that wouldn't be my favorite island.
Whew.
I'd live with that magician.
It's the island of the Boggarts.
The magician.
Crossover.
The magician would be kind of fun. We'd have to deal with the Duffel Puds, but if you could have a good sense of humor about the Duffel Puds, that could be fun.
If you could hang with a magician and get your favorite meal, like for every meal, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, whatever you wanted to eat for any meal.
Hang out with Star-Lord and Star-Chick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just have that feast every night.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't go to Star-Lord and Star-Chick. I hate their island. It's all dreary and poetical and important and portentous, and that's just not my bag.
Beautiful song that ushers in the sunrise every morning.
Yeah, I'd like to take a
experience it once.
But it's high and shrill and sounds like the morning.
It's like
that's what the morning sounds like.
Yeah.
Is it?
That's how it sounds.
Kind of what it sounds like to me too. I'm not a morning person.
Our listeners are.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Entering into a transcendent bliss right now. No, I hate Star-Lord's island. I would not live there. That part to me as a kid always did feel dreary and high and mystic and poetic, kind of like the Lady of the Lake and Arthur. It's like, let's get back to the beheadings, guys. Come on.
Maybe I would have a party barge with some close friends outside their island, so every day we could go get some food.
Yeah, I like the party barge.
Back to the party
outside
barge.
of the lone islands, the Magician's Island is and the Star Island are the only safe islands.
You don't want to stay on.
I'm gonna go to that creepy pool island and make a little fortune. Yeah.
I bind all of you to secrecy, and
that's creepy. That really, I already said this, but that really freaked me out.
They end up naming it Deathwater.
Just the idea of coming to a place that, that's another great thing that great horror does, is take something completely innocuous and make it threatening. The idea that you could just dive into a pool.
You could show up on a very like they get there and it's just like it's described as being very beautiful,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost unsettlingly beautiful. They start to go to one, like Drinian wants to go to the one stream. They go to another, they drink from the other stream, and then they hike around, and they're just lucky.
And the idea that Edmund was standing and his toes had
The boots
had turned to gold is just really great.
Yeah, like they were all that close to just for no reason whatsoever. No fault, no inner dragon-like.
No, it's just the arbitrary.
The metaphorical, just, it's just fickle fate. Like, this is an island.
This guy wanted to do something completely reasonable, and now his corpse is lying at the bottom of this pool. It's
loser.
He showed up on a beautiful island, thought he'd go for a little swim, and now he's dead. And a golden statue at the bottom of the of a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's really creepy. And it was as a kid. Like this book was actually too potent for me as a kid in certain places, and that was one of them.
I really liked the sea serpent too. I was surprised by how small that little section actually was.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember the serpent they end up pushing. Reepicheep has the idea. He only breaks off the prow or whatever. And then, he thinks he's crushed the ship, and he's like gleefully stupidly looking, among the wreckage while the ship shoots off.
That's great. Well, there again, if you're J.K. Rowling, then Hermione or Longbottom or Harry or Ron, whoever's turn it is, does something awesome. But if you're C.S. Lewis and you're a little smarter and you want to be a little bit more relatable for the kids reading the book, Edmund does something awesome, and it also sucks and is useless and pointless. Eustace.
It's his moment of bravery.
Yeah, and everybody talks about it, and it's a real moment.
Really commends him for it.
Yeah, and Lewis commends him for it, and we're supposed to understand it was great. Also,
it was retarded.
He's not a warrior. He just broke Caspian's sword. He did nothing.
Second best sword.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and everybody's like, bravo, Eustace, you tried to do something.
Yeah.
You were stupid, you didn't know, but now you know.
Well, and guess what? J.K. Rowling, a bunch of kids are actually more able to relate to that than just doing something great, unless you're writing to a generation of entitled brats that just thinks everything they do is great, and you want to create a generation of entitled brats. So you write Harry Potter, where it's like Harry accidentally did something, and it was awesome, just like everything that Harry accidentally did was awesome.
Eustace took a baby step of bravery. It was
nothing.
It was pretty foolish. It was a cheap nothing. He ended up breaking Caspian's second best sword, but he was trying, and everybody was ready to celebrate him trying as a moment of progress for him. Yay!
Especially when
Eustace.
You track with Eustace in whatchamacallit, Silver Chair actually being pretty awesome, and then being awesome on through the series. It's like it's nice that he didn't have to achieve it all at once. Baby steps of faith is really cool.
He has a couple moments like that.
Let's see. We talked about all the islands.
Yeah.
Magician's Island is cool. I don't want to. The Dufflepuds are funny.
The Magician's Book is cool.
Yeah.
The Magician's Book is really cool.
I will say one of that story that Lucy can't remember, that is Lewis just up to his old longing that can't be having tricks that.
Yeah, it is.
I thought that part was pretty obnoxious.
But the other parts are pretty cool.
But what I liked about it was that you didn't know if the book was, in these kinds of scenarios, the book tends to have a personality, right?
Right.
And the book is either evil or the book is good.
And you actually don't know.
And he maintains that you don't know if this book is evil or if it's good for a good while. And that moment is the first moment where you suspect that the book is good, because that story comes right after she's done the spell where she overhears her friends talking about her, and it sort of helps her forget about it and move on.
Although I like that Aslan's like, yeah, you messed up and you'll probably
it's
never
gonna ruin your friendship.
Yep, sorry.
I do like that too.
That's probably the best Aslan moment, or one of the best in this. One of the less high and mighty Riddler Aslan moments.
Yeah, more wisdom from C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Because who hasn't ruined a friendship because of some stupid anxiety or...
I think the wisdom of you don't want to know what people say behind your back. You don't want to know what your friends say behind your back.
Yeah.
Is...
No, you really don't.
It's generally good. Like,
no.
He just said, look, she was afraid.
Yeah.
She wanted to and
appease this other stupid girl.
Appease this other person, and she said things that she didn't mean, and people do that all the time. Now you can't unhear it, and that's actually on you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
great.
That's some good. Like every high schooler should read that section.
Every junior higher.
Every junior higher. Yes.
Yeah.
Man,
I mean, that's a really hard lesson for anybody at any age to learn. Let's be honest, and to really trust and believe. But man, if you think about all the times that you say things about people,
you wish you didn't, yeah,
or you say them, but
it is motivated by something entirely outside of the person, whatever it is,
and it doesn't have anything to do at the end of the day with your love or admiration or even ultimately your respect for them.
Yeah,
right.
But
like when I say Brennan's fat, it's because I don't like him.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
And because I have my blog that says all those things about Nathan, I don't mean most of them.
Like 90% of the things on this blog that I'm hearing about for the first time, I guess, are lie.
You'll never find it.
I really like Lucy. I think she's a really difficult character to pull off because she is like just the earnest,
angel child,
lovable kid.
He does it well, and
he does it really well. She doesn't feel cloying. I don't know exactly what the difference is between Lucy and like your Pollyannas and your...
She has faults, that's how.
Yeah, I think that's it.
The passage Jake was just telling us about.
Right.
That's a pretty endearing passage for Lucy, the fact that she
everything
struggles.
First of all, she's really, really enchanted by this beauty spell.
Yeah.
And then she does the thing, man, how many times have you done this? You have, by God's grace, you overcome a big temptation.
Oh, every day.
By God's grace, you've overcome a big temptation, and then you suddenly have to gobble up the small temptation right away because you're entitled to it, and you're just going to do it, and you don't want your stupid conscience to get in the way of something.
Yeah.
Of some pleasure, like that is right.
Oh, and it's just that crass. It's like, well, I didn't look at pornography, so I'm going to be a glutton.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you actually tell yourself that. Basically.
Yeah. I said no to porn. So really quickly, before I can even think about it, this Jack's Pizza is already going to be in the oven.
Right. I said no to porn, and so hello, alcohol.
Yeah. Exactly. Oops,
Papa.
I accidentally, poured too much. Well, I better drink that quick before my conscience tells me not to.
Oh, man. Nobody understands how the lies we tell ourselves when we want to commit a sin better than Lewis. It's what's great about Screw Tape. It's what's great about a lot of Narnia.
Lucy having moments like that is what makes Lucy a real person.
Yeah.
Well, and even just the fact that, like in that chunk in Prince Caspian, she doesn't say "I told you so." She also doesn't not say "I told you so."
She kind of does say "I told you so."
She reads as like she's a really sweet kid. She's the kind of kid that you would just love in real life, but she's not perfect. She's just a real kid.
Yeah, she's not a Dickensian angel.
Right.
Yeah.
She does have flaws, and she feels
the pain of Susan being the preferred one in a way that's not.
Yeah. Although I disagree with your casting thing that you said the other day. I don't think that Lucy... I think that, to me, it's always been Ginger and Marianne.
Like that you would actually like Lucy.
Yeah.
I think you're giving yourself a lot of credit.
You think that you would like Lucy?
Well,
he's saying that Susan is
Ginger.
Obviously, if people don't understand this because they're dumb and don't live in the world, every person that's ever watched Gilligan's Island knows that even though Ginger was the sexy movie star, we all, and I've never talked to a man that doesn't agree with this, prefer Marianne, who's the wholesome girl next door.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I've never read that. It was a surprise to me the other day when you said
Lucy in the movie
Lucy's homely.
Is homely.
She's ugly, and that's good because that's the way she is in the book because Susan's the pretty one. And I've just never thought that.
Well, it's interesting.
I've always thought it's Ginger and Marianne, and Susan having the benefit of being the oldest and everything that comes along with.
Well, and what old Clive Staples says is she was the kind of girl that adults considered to be pretty, which I don't know exactly what that means, but that tells you a lot about who Susan was. I mean, that's what he says about Susan. So she's got that quality, whatever it is, that people tend to accept as prettiness, whether it's actually real prettiness. I guess in Susan's case, we find out that it's not. Yeah, which is interesting.
Oh, because she goes to hell.
She goes to hell, basically. I don't know that Lucy was homely. I don't remember what context I said that in, but the context that I...
You were just talking about how you liked that old series and how they cast a homely girl.
Well, I do think that they cast her too pretty in the Disney movie. There's no discernible difference between her and Susan.
I don't remember.
Sure
it's been a long time. I agree. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I remember actually feeling... It's been a long time since I saw those movies, but I remember sort of being let down by Lucy should be cuter.
I think that's just your appearance-ism.
Probably is.
I think Lucy could just be a normal, chunky kid kind of person.
It's possible.
There's a difference between cute and pretty, right?
There is, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between Ginger and Marianne. I think that's the difference between Susan and Lucy.
Yeah.
That's Lucy.
Yeah,
that's cute.
Fine, yeah.
She's
just normal.
Kind of normal, cute.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little under cute.
Under cute for Lucy. Well, I'm going to make you guys watch one of those BBC things. I think you might actually like them.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty cheesy with the terrible special effects, but they do a good job with the performances, at least as I remember. All right, everybody's looking up pictures of Lucy.
We've been having this conversation for a while now.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a long episode. All right, we're not here to talk about the movies, guys. What else do you want to say about this?
I said everything I want to say, Nathan.
Brandon hates it. He thinks it's blasphemy.
Yes.
Jake thinks it's just Huck Finn with dragons. All right, you guys ready for the predictions that we made?
Yep.
Yeah.
I said I would like it, even though I didn't like it when I was a kid, so I was correct.
Yeah, sweet.
Brandon said he'd like it, but it would be his fourth favorite. Brandon, would you consider this blasphemous piece of filth to be your fourth favorite Narnia book?
What does that mean, my fourth favorite?
I don't know. You ranked them all, remember?
So what would have to be beneath this?
Prince Caspian was number 6, so this is worse. This is better than Prince Caspian.
Nope, sorry.
Okay, so you were wrong. Your ranking was incorrect. So do you think this is better than Caspian?
No, I think Prince Caspian was better.
Okay, and I'm not sure what 5s and 6 were. You said that The Horse and His Boy would be your favorite. Magician's Number would be your second. Jake, you said might still be the best. And I think we'll find out whether you think this is the best when I ask you guys to award, or do you want to just say it?
Yeah, I don't think that this is going to get the best.
I don't think it can, because I think it's
just
too
not as good of a book.
It's just too off brand, I think. Like the best one to me has to happen. Well, maybe not, because it might be The Horse and His Boy. But it feels like
The Horse and His Boy might be the best.
If you're going to sail away from Narnia and away from all the quote unquote important stuff, I don't know that can be the best.
Well, to me,
this is low stakes. The mission is let's find some dudes.
But it's not that low stakes, because the king is going off on a voyage that he may never come back.
Yeah, but I never really seriously bought that. If it was like, we got to find the dudes or the green mist will devour us all, then that'd be even
Apparently
better.
I had to gather all the 7 swords. And so the final scene is Edmund trying to get the final sword to the table. They had to put them all on the table at this.
This is from the movie.
Yeah, they had to put them all on the table at Star-Lord's Island.
Mm-hmm.
And if they got all the 7 swords of these 7 lords, they would defeat the green mist. And as Edmund's trying to get the last sword on the table, the white mist shows her true form.
The green mist.
It's the White Witch.
And it's the White Witch.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you see, that's why I'm an idiot for saying this book is low stakes, because I'm thinking exactly like a Hollywood executive who said, hey, this book is low stakes. We need a villain.
Let's bring back the White Witch.
Make it the mist.
Yeah,
the mist.
And then
the green
Empire
mist.
Strikes Back never gets made.
Yep, you're right. You can listen to our Empire Strikes Back book for
and
the
that. Sea Serpent is there trying to fight on behalf of the White Witch, apparently.
Cool. This sounds rad.
Caspian. So then after that's finished, they have a quick trip to the end of the world, where Caspian decides he won't go back because he's the king. He won't go forward because he's the king. He doesn't have to be convinced.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
There is no lamb, so I guess there's that improvement.
All right, that's good.
The movie's great.
Oh, can we say before we quit, Reaper Cheap, what a character.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I love
Reaper
him.
Cheap. Yep.
I'm with Lucy. I wish I could hug him and just cuddle him.
That's sweet that she gets
He's
to cuddle
just
him
great.
at the end. He's pretty fantastic. But it would be pretty embarrassing to be spanked by a mouse, I will say, on Eustace.
A 2-foot tall
the flat of a sword.
Yes. That was unfortunate. But you should not grab
He deserved it.
a warrior mouse by his tail and swing him around. Yeah.
That's what you get.
That's a fun little section.
Okay.
All right, Brandon,
Yeah.
how many lampposts out of 7 do you give this book?
Nathan,
I should have been keeping track. I meant to write
5?
it down. I think we said, let me write this down for all of us.
We just said 6 and 5.
We were all in the 6 and 5 range for the first two.
I mean, it's not that.
I think you guys both gave Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe 6.
Yeah.
And then
you gave
Caspian
it 5.
Or 5.5.
I gave 5.5 to Caspian. I don't know that you guys were aware that halves were a
So I think
thing
I give
until-
5.5 to Caspian.
Okay.
5 to this one.
So this is worse than Caspian. This is the worst one we've read so
yeah,
far.
but not bad. It's still fun.
Okay. Yeah, 5 lampposts ain't nothing.
Yeah.
You're not giving it 0 lampposts.
I think Caspian I enjoyed more,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to admit that might just be because I'm a C.S. Lewis truther.
Right. Well, that's fine. Lampposts are your own. We all have our own lampposts that we give. So you
When
give
a man writes a book about his great philosophy of life, and I see it in everything he writes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. As the point you were ironically making. Jake, how many lampposts? Is this a 7 lampposter for you? It's kind of sounded like
tempting. I'm tempted.
But
I think that if I
is this the ceiling on Narnia?
I think if I gave it 7, it would be out of spite for you guys. And so I'm going to give it 6.
6? You could give 6.5 if you want.
I know. I'm aware.
6 1/4.
I think I'm going to give it 6.
Can you do quarters?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm giving it 6.
You're giving it 6 lampposts. Now, may I ask what keeps it from being a 7 lampposter, given how much you love it?
It is low stakes, and it just doesn't have. It's got good metaphors and good lessons. It doesn't have some of the same gems that some of the other books have.
Yeah, it's the strongest material here isn't as strong as the strongest material in other books.
Yeah.
Although that dragon allegory is pretty great.
Yeah.
I almost wish I could give lampposts to each episode of this book, because I think that they might wildly diverge.
They would, but that's part of
the charm.
The charm, and what you get in Dawn Treaders, you get 7 different little, or however many little episodes, vignettes, short stories, each with their own little thing, and that's what's unique and fun about it. And it ends up being a weakness too. So
yeah, I wouldn't change it. I mean, especially since there's 7 books, the fact that this one goes off the beaten path is cool. If you want like a hero's journey style adventure with a big villain, you're going to get one in the very next book. So this is tough, man. Brandon, how many lampposts did you give? 5. And Jake gave 6.
Yeah.
Am I going to go 5.5 again?
I think it's equivalent
put it on a level to Caspian?
No.
Caspian's generally not considered to be
one of the better ones.
No, but Caspian really, I liked it. It was just a fun book, but I actually enjoyed this one more than Caspian. I don't think I've broken 6 yet, if I'm remembering correctly.
You haven't.
But I'm gonna actually give this one 6. As an adult reading these books, I enjoyed this book more than Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe.
It's the most fun of the 3 books.
This is the most fun I've had, and so I don't know if
I don't think that you're gonna. I don't think when it's straight up fun, I don't think you're gonna find its equal until you hit The Horse and Its Boy. I don't think The Silver Chair is going to be fun. I think The Silver Chair will be satisfying in other ways, but I don't think it'll be fun.
I'll be interested. That was always my favorite as a kid. We'll see what I like this time.
It was my least favorite as a kid, and I'm standing by it.
Whoa. Sounds like we have some more fun conversations coming up, gentlemen.
Yep. Maybe Jake will spend an hour griping and
all
like,
over.
I just like it. It's good. Come on.
Get off your high horse.
Get off your high horse. But okay, I think my lampposts, as I've said, are very subjective. This is just my experience of reading the books, and this was a 6 lampposter. I agree with Brandon when it comes to philosophy. This one's not cracking a 5. It might even be a 4 based on some of the stuff that I am uncomfortable with. But in terms of entertainment value, this is a 6 lamppost book. What can I say?
There you go. And in the end, it's that Hollywood producer in you that matters the most.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Brandon, thanks for listening.
Hey, anytime, Nathan.
Jake, thanks for listening.
Glad to just be here and listen to you guys sound smart.
Yep. Patreon.com/Bookening.
Sound is the important word.
Sound is the important word.
We're really dumb.